Episode 21. Do you want me to feed you? Dario was turned on by their kiss. Jade smiled and said seriously, "Of course I know. I want to kiss you and have sex with you." She thought that rather than being sold to a rich old man by her family, she might as well give her most valuable thing to this handsome man first. At least he had helped her before, and in his eyes, he was still her benefactor. If she really had to lose her virginity, she would rather give it to him. Actually, at that moment, she was willing to give it to him. "You want to have sex with me?" Dario squinted his eyes and, despite his calm face, felt surprised deep down in his heart. "Yeah, I want to have sex with you. I would rather give my virginity to you than to someone who disgusts me." Jade's eyes flickered as she pounced on Dario once again and kissed his lips aggressively. Her kiss seemed inexperienced, as though she was just messing around. This time, Dario did not push her away. Instead, he pinned her down on the sofa and started to kiss her deeply. His kiss was so domineering, it was like he wanted to suffocate her. He constantly licked every corner of her mouth with his nimble tongue, and all of his movements stimulated Jade's mind. Jade did not choose to give up, even though she was faced with such an offensive kiss. Instead, she tried her best to imitate his actions. There was a minty flavor in his mouth, which made her feel relaxed. As time went by, she could no longer resist him. Because his kiss was too passionate, Jade felt numb on the tip of her tongue, and her mouth was filled with his breath. Just when she was almost at her limit, Dario finally let go of her lips. He looked at her red, swollen lips, then moved towards her earlobes and gently kissed them. She felt numbness spread all over her body. "Are you sure you want to do this with me?" Dario whispered in her ear with his deep, seductive, and alluring voice. Jade grabbed her dress tightly and closed her eyes. She trembled as she spoke to him. "Yes, I'm sure." "Then don't regret it." Dario glanced at the tears in the corners of her eyes and carried her back to his room. He then threw her onto the bed and pinned her down. She could feel her muscular body pressing against hers, and she nervously grabbed onto her dress with her eyes closed. Her body was so stiff that he could not spread her legs open. Dario tried touching the sensitive parts of her body to ease her, but her brows were tightly knit. Jade waited for him to do something. However, just when she thought he would take the next level, he suddenly stopped. The room was completely quiet, and she could feel him leaving her body. She then opened her eyes and noticed Dario was already sitting on the side of the bed without a trace of emotion on his face. She thought that the one who kissed her deeply a minute ago did not seem like the same person at all, since he was just sitting there and did not seem interested in her. Jade sat up and looked at him without saying a word. Because she was feeling dizzy, she had to prop herself up on the bed to keep herself from falling. "Why didn't you continue?" Jade asked softly after a while. Dario turned around, and she could see a trace of anger in his indifferent gaze. He seemed to be mad. But why was he mad? "Why? It's obvious that you didn't want to have sex with me." Jade lowered her head and said nothing as she bit her lower lip. She did not dare to answer him because she could not hide her thoughts from him. He could see right through her. "Remember, I'm not interested in having sex with a woman who is unwilling. It's better to face the dead than the soulless ones," Dario said without any expression on his face, as his pearl black eyes became even colder. "I'm sorry," Jade said as tears filled her eyes. So in his eyes, she was not even comparable to a corpse. "I don't know what your intention was, but I'm warning you. Don't do it again or I'll break your legs," Dario warned her with a burning fire in his eyes. Jade sensed a strange feeling in his ice-cold words. Dario took the quilt from the bed and threw it in the direction of Jade. The quilt covered her whole body and made everything pitch black before her eyes. She stayed under the quilt for quite a while and only lifted it off when she felt suffocated. When she lifted the quilt, she found that Dario had already gone to the bathroom. She buried her head in the blanket again and let the tears soak into the quilt. He must be very disappointed. He must have thought that she was a cheap woman. Jade stuck her fingers and shoved her nails into the palm of her hand. Only pain would sober her up. She felt ashamed when she thought of the time when she threw herself into his arms. She could hear punching sounds coming from the bathroom. About 5 minutes later, she saw Dario walking out of the bathroom with a sullen face and a towel wrapping around his lower body. He opened the door and left the room right away. She had no idea where he went. He did not even spare Jade a glance when he walked out as if she were invisible. Jade forced a smile and thought that he probably never wanted to see her again. Right. Who would like a woman like her? Jade, you are really too shameless, she said to herself. She reached out her arms and wiped off her tears. She thought that it was time for her to leave. But just when her feet touched the floor, that ice-bag face appeared before her again. Get back on the bed now, Dario said impatiently as he frowned. He only glanced away from her for a second. What was she trying to do? Jade was petrified and did not know what he was going to do, but she obediently sat back down on the bed. Dario passed a steaming cup to her and said in a casual yet commanding voice, "Drink it." Jade was speechless. She took the cup and sniffed it. Then she realized it was ginger tea. Just when she was stupefied, Dario's indifferent voice rang past her ears again. "If there's any left over, I'll break your legs. Drink it now." Seeing that Jade did not drink it, Dario said impatiently, "Why aren't you drinking it? Do you want me to feed you?" When he finished speaking, he tried to snatch the cup from her hand, but Jade avoided it and responded, "It's hot.